name's Caitlin. I'm a holistic nutrition consultant and the author of a blog called grassfedgirl.com. Thank you so much for joining me today. We have an amazing guest with us. He is a podcast consultant and a content creator. His name is Tony Berardo, and he's going to talk about his journey with Crohn's disease and how he has helped himself so much to calm it down and make it better. Thank you for joining us, Tony. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is exciting. Appreciate it.
We met a few weeks ago on the Perfect Keto live stream, and he does some keto dieting, and he also is more of a keto plant-based person. So tell us your story and tell us what you were like before, and then you got sick, and what happened. What's the whole development there?
Yes. So a long process for sure, as you and probably a lot of your listeners know, that when you get sick, like I did at first, which was going back about 4 or 5 years ago, I was at my prime. I was 180 pounds. To put in perspective, I'm like 145 now. So 40 more pounds of lean muscle. I was doing 6,500 calories a day as a personal trainer. I was working out every day, and I was treating my body like an amusement park pretty much. And then I just started having issues. I started getting backed up and constipated and flus constantly. And I didn't know what it was. So I eventually had to constantly be going into the ER and to see doctors. And every doctor was like, oh, yeah, you're just backed up. You're just constipated. And they would give me laxatives and things to push it through. And after about 6 hospital visits in the ER, I realized I was like, oh, there's got to be something wrong. So in my mid-20s, I got my first colonoscopy. That was interesting to tell all my friends that was happening. And long story short, they found out that I had scarring in my intestines, and I have a very rare case of Crohn's disease, which it's at the bottom of my lower intestine, and it's essentially kind of like a hose when you step on it, and it's like that permanently. Nothing I could do. It's completely scarred up, probably from the years of me treating my body horribly, I would imagine. And sometimes it's inflamed and sometimes it's not. It could be inflamed by various things. They don't really know, unfortunately, with Crohn's disease. It could be stress. It could be it just wants to do it that day. It could be something I ate. So it was very frustrating at first, right? Because again, I'm sure, like we've talked about, Galen, when you don't know what it is and you don't know the solution to it, sometimes getting frustrated about it makes the symptoms worse. And it took me years to try to figure out what the issue was. And through having medication from doctors, things like prednisone, Humira was one of the big things that kind of opened up my eyes, where I was having some pretty bad reactions to it. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. So I started kind of doing an elimination diet. And I cut out my red meat at first, as much as I hated that because red meat's awesome. And then I went pescatarian, then I went vegetarian, and now I'm plant-based and mostly keto. And that seems to be doing the trick right now. I'm late 30s, I'm 37 years old. So I've been dealing with this since I was in my mid-20s. And it took me about 10 years to really hone this in. And I think I'm always monitoring it. And I'm always kind of aware that things might change every day, because plant based works for me now, but it might not work for me in 6 months. So I'm very conscious about what I'm eating. And for me, just kind of eating keto and keeping my ingredients low has really helped me. Fats high, proteins high, carbs low, and not being full has shown to give me less symptoms for my Crohn's.
And so what made you think, what gave you the idea to cut out proteins and meats at first? What was that
Yeah.
thought process?
So all the research I've done, and from what I know, being a trainer, and I have a bunch of buddies that I had on my podcast that talked a lot about nutrition and things like that, and they said, you have to figure out what takes the longest to digest and try to eliminate those first. Because with my Crohn's, and I can't speak for all Crohn's patients, but for my disease, because it's at the bottom of my intestines, essentially my body could be completely full before I have an incident or an attack.
Okay.
So what makes me full? what's not going through. And usually that could be things that I can't really digest very well. Things like corn, maybe gluten, perhaps red meat, right? And chicken, because that's kind of hard to digest as well. Raw vegetables, I realize as well, is a big no-no for me, right? As you know, that causes some massive constipation as well, too much fiber. So I had to be careful with that. So really, I was like, okay, well, let me start eliminating that stuff. So I took out a lot of breads um, and when I say bread, I mean bread you buy at stores. Like I make my own bread. That's okay because I know the ingredients that are in it. But when I started realizing that so many labels that you're reading, if you don't know what it is and you look up those things and you don't necessarily need those items, that could have been affecting me. So I just started kind of eliminating everything that was not nutritionist for me. And eventually after years and years of figuring it out, that's kinda what works, and, I'm terrified to try new things, so I occasionally try to drizzle in some new items here and there, but yeah, more often than not, it's very bland, it's very, um, not seasoned, I cooked my vegetables and I don't mix things, and I be careful with seasonings and things like that because that could, react poorly as well for me,
Yeah, I
so
mean, but I mean, what doesn't make what I don't understand is like if you think about it from I mean, when I first started getting into nutrition, it was always I mean, the big things was at the time was like Rob Wolf and studying paleo and all this stuff. And it's all from like this ancestral perspective. And like from an ancestral perspective, it made so much sense to me. I was like, oh, well, we've been eating this way for millions of years. And then we introduced agriculture and we started farming grains and all this stuff. And then we got shorter and our teeth started falling out. And I mean, I'm sure you've heard all of this. So
oh, yeah.
how does that not make sense to you or just doesn't work with your body or what?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm too not to sound braggadocious, but I'm too intelligent for this disease, I feel like, because that's the most frustrating part, is because I know the way I'm eating is not the best way to eat. It's if I had to put myself, you know, on on kind of a pyramid, so to speak, lack of a better word, because we know the food pyramid's garbage. But if I had to create my own food pyramid, I would say eating plant-based and whole foods right now, adding in grass-fed meat, chicken, and fish. That would be my perfect meal, or excuse me, my perfect diet. Correct way to eat. I think the problem that we're running into that I realize with an elimination diet, probably like you guys realize as well, being a mostly carnivore, is that when you're on a carnivore diet or a plant-based diet, you're not really eliminating foods like meats and veggies. Like you're a carnivore. Yeah, you're eliminating veggies, and me, I'm eliminating meat. But really, I think the underlying factor that we're not realizing is we're eliminating all the other processed shit that's out there. Can I curse, by the way? Sorry.
I mean, it's
It's too
YouTube,
late now.
it's YouTube, so
Yeah. So, but we're both eliminating processed garbage. And I think that's the key. And I think the problem is what frustrates me the most about being vegan is I can't eat meat when I know it's so good for you. And I know just the nutrients and the proteins. It's the most nutrient eggs in particular. Look at egg. It's a superfood. It's the best thing you could probably eat in your life. And unfortunately, it doesn't react well with me. But I know it's important. And I know it's something our body needs. And to your point about, going back to our ancestors, back then, even when we were able to cook meat for the first time as cavemen, when we first figured out fire, um, you're never going to get a piece of meat that nutrient now. Even if, unless you hunt your own elk and cook it like Joe Rogan, you're never going to get a piece of meat like that at Winn-Dixie or Publix or Kroger, right? So that's the problem, I think, is even if you're on a carnivore diet, who knows what that meat's going to look like in 10 years? So many people are going into touching that food on a daily basis. We just don't have a lot of control over it. And I think that's kind of what my Crohn's is telling me is like, listen, bro, grow your own food, eat healthy foods, or else I'm going to give you an attack. Because every time I go off that path, it shows me it tests my limits for sure.
well, I think the things that you have talked about, like journaling, these and the elimination diet, I mean, those are the keys when you do have a chronic condition to starting the healing process. And, I'm glad that you are doing those. And, because if you're just not remembering anything, you just kind of wandering around in the dark. So if you, yeah, I definitely started with elimination diets, and um, and with nuts and seeds and grains and all that stuff, it was just, my digestion would just go crazy. And um, I couldn't, I started out kind of plant-based, and, after I was sick, then I thought, well, I'll just eat nut butter and stuff. And I would just like eat a
Yeah.
whole thing of nut butter. And then I was just starving. And it's like, I could never get satisfied unless I ate meat. And that was like, I wanted it to be I wanted to be plant-based, but I was just like starving all the time. And I was like, I don't understand this. It's not working. I don't know if have you ever heard of Denise Minger? She has a really good, she's written all this stuff about how she was a vegan for many years. And then she went kind of more paleo, but
Mm.
like you just said, what there's a honeymoon on both diets, like where you feel this amazing euphoria, and it's exactly that. You take out all the processed seed oils and the grains and the um, and the gluten, and then and sugar, and then you start feeling this amazing, and like, this is the best diet. And so it could be, that both ways you have this honeymoon phase and you feel amazing. And then, after a while, her health started to crash because she didn't get enough. Um,
Nutrients. Yeah.
yeah. So then she started eating more like a paleo style, but she's a very good writer. If you ever come across her, you probably would relate to a lot of it.
Yeah. I was gonna say if you could shoot me that in the DM, that'd be awesome.
And she's got
Um.
a blog, and she's
Oh
not like
yeah.
she's not like a YouTuber, but she's a good writer.
Yeah.
Um, so, and I think that the biggest thing is to not get so stuck in one way that you're not willing. Like you said, sounds like you're still in the process of healing, and you're still looking for answers. And, I mean, I've tried to eat differently, and I go back and I try to eat differently. I've tried to stop taking my thyroid medication. I don't think we're ever going to stop trying things. We're going to keep
Hmm.
attempting. I would like to eat more variety, but it just, every time I try, I feel horrible, and all my symptoms come back, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, this isn't worth it. It isn't worth feeling like crap. And so I go back to carnivore, and
That's
and
right.
so I think it's good to stay open. That's why I wanted to have you on today, because, this is not Fox News. I don't want to have just only people that agree with me, 100%, because that's not learning. That's not
That's right.
being open-minded, and it's just like a bubble and just going round and around. And carnivore is the best thing and the only thing. And I mean, I've been in this space for so long. It's like almost 15 years, and it's like there's only one way. And
Yeah.
you know we all have, I mean, I do believe that we are evolved to eat meat. So that's one way. I do. I don't really, I do think maybe some people can eat more meat, some people can eat less. And there are some vegetables, but following the Weston A. Price, which I do believe in, is,
Hmm.
the proper preparation of grains, which is not done anymore. The soaking, the fermenting, these things are not followed. And so I think if you don't do that, you're going to end up with gut problems. And so we're eating, like you said, bread with 15 ingredients and sugar and everything else. And then the other thing is, Weston A. Price um, didn't find vegetarian. He said he did find vegetarians, but he did not find vegans. So, um,
Mm.
it's a thing to. So I do believe in his work, and I do think that every diet should include some animal foods to be sustainable.
Yeah.
But I don't. I do believe, like, I mean, even in my own family, there's like my stepmom can. She thinks, that, and I think for women too, it's always like, meat is not feminine. Don't eat a lot of meat.
Mm.
You don't, and so when
Huh.
she sees me eating a lot of meat, she's like, she's like, I'll just have my, chia, whatever,
Yeah.
thing. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
Okay, but you know, you have osteoporosis. Like, what's your deal? But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, if you're
so,
not following the like Jennifer Aniston diet of having like yogurt and vital protein, you're not a woman. Yeah.
well,
No,
that's
and
that's more protein than most women get. You're getting the
true.
collagen and the yogurt.
That's right.
There,
Well, and that's what a lot of people think when, I tell them that I'm vegan because I don't look like a typical vegan. Like if you see me or you follow my content, like people don't really know I'm vegan. But again, I'm a big believer in just not processed foods. Like when vegans are trying to shove beyond meat and impossible meat down my face. I've even been offered some of these companies to sponsor my podcast, and I refuse to, only because I don't believe in the product. I don't think that's real anything. It's not even a real. Why would I? You look at like one of those ingredients is beet juice and beets. Why don't I just have a beet? Oh, because I need it to taste like a hamburger? No, I don't. Because it's if I the only thing that happens when I eat that food is it makes me want a hamburger.
yeah.
So, but again, I think to your point, it's one of those things where we are evolved to eat any food. That's what's great about being a human is we're conscious and we're aware of all the different foods and how nutrient they are. And, but then I would fight back and say, but if you only eat meat, what type of meat are you eating? Right? Because 50 years ago, the steak that you're putting in your face is not the same as it is today. And I think that also has detrimental negative effects as well, just like plants do. If depending on the pesticides that get sprayed on the plants that I eat, it could have detrimental effects on me 15, 20 years from now. I could get cancer because of that. You could get potentially some type of chronic disease because of the cow that is raised in the factory farming environment where you get your meat. And we'll never know. And that's what is so unfortunate about the Western diet is we just don't know where the food's coming from. So if you can figure out where that line is, and you can, like Price talks about a lot, where you can figure out where your food's coming from and take the most nutrient dense food you can, whether that's plants or meats or both. I mean, that's how you're going to live a long, healthier life for sure.
So tell us your typical day of what you eat um and what, makes you
Boring.
feel the best.
So boring, but okay. So usually, I mean, I'm fortunate enough to where I'm able to grow my own veggies and fruits now. I've kind of adopted this system. It's called the garden system. It's at home, so that's where I get a lot of my veggies. But usually, I'll fast in the morning. I'll just have nothing but black coffee and some collagen, and I'll do that until probably about noon. And then I'll do some type of green powder. Like I'm a big AG1 drinker, so I'll have AG1 to get my vitamins. I'll spray my vitamin D from on it. I usually get about 5,000 to 8,000 IUs. And then I usually work out after that. I don't use any energy drinks or caffeine or nothing like that because I already have my coffee in the morning. So I'll work out and then post workout around 2 o'clock. I'll have a nice hearty fruit and veggie smoothie with chia seeds and sometimes I'll do the occasional, like if I'm really feeling squirrely, I'll do like some extra collagen or I'll do some extra greens powder. Just depends on how I'm feeling that day. And then I'll eat at about 7 p.m. I usually have a really dense salad, maybe some cooked broccoli on the side with some zucchini or squash, some of my faves, rice, not all at once, obviously, but this is just spread out in a couple days. But that's usually my meals at night. They're not exciting at all.
What
It's
about what fats are you using?
uh aside from like my nut butters, that's a big fat, and then what I get from my protein. I mean, that's really the only fats I'm getting. Just because unfortunately, I can't intake a lot. That's what's unfortunate about my certain disease, to where I just can't intake more than 2,000 calories a day. So I have to be very conscious of it. So I fight the battle of just having proteins in the veggies, and depending on what type of vegetable I'm eating, is if I'm lucky enough to where it might have a little fat here and there, I just intake a lot of veggies at night, and then I usually just fast until the following day, 12 or 1 p.m. is usually when I eat again.
So, what proteins are you talking about? I didn't hear any proteins.
Oh, in my smoothies.
Okay.
Yeah, that's that's the only proteins I
So,
usually
like a
intake.
protein powder, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, sorry. So Orgain protein is usually what I use. Um Sometimes there's a company Holier that I also use their proteins in, but yeah, I mean that's really it. Um Nut butters. Again, I get a lot of my protein. Like you saw me have some cereal today, where I'll make my own oat milk, and that has protein, and where I'll do almonds and oat milk mixed together, and I'll make my own milk. But I'm 140 pounds. I maybe intake 100 grams a day of protein.
Do you have any concerns about the differences between like plant protein bioavailability and animal protein absorbability, you know?
Yeah. From what I've seen, I mean, obviously, again, I go back to animal proteins the best, no question. In terms of absorption, and consumption, availability, I mean, that's the best of the best. I just can't. I've even tried whey protein because that's what I used to intake all the time, but whey protein really rocks me. So now this is just I usually either use hemp protein, which is probably one of my favorites, or I think the one I have with Orgain is it might be hemp, pumpkin, and something else mixed together. It's Orgain Superfoods protein. If anybody looks that up, it's a really good mixed plant based protein, and that's great. I'll have that 2 or 3 times a day. I get a lot of protein that way as well. And then, of course, as we know, a lot of vegetables have protein, not as much. So that's why I have to consume so much throughout the day. But, like spinach, for example, I'm getting what, 4 grams of protein per whatever, 10 grams or whatever it is. Or I could have like one egg and get 8 grams. So that's the frustrating part, right? Is I
So
just have to
even
eat.
even eggs don't agree with you?
No, I mean, I've occasionally I might cheat and maybe have like one fried egg or something like that, but I could tell. But I don't know if it's the eggs don't agree with me, as I just don't have it as much as I used to, right? Like I think that's with anything. If you get out of the habit of eating something on a daily basis and then you start implementing it again, your body's like, "Whoa, whoa, what is that?" And then it just reacts poorly.
So,
Um,
I heard you have some news with your family?
that's right. Yes, we just announced it. Caitlin's one of the first to know, actually. But yeah, we had a little one that just not born already, but my wife is 12 months pregnant. So
Oh,
we
wait.
just got 12 weeks. Excuse me. 12 months. Jesus. Uh,
That's a problem.
we should go to the doctor. Yeah,
Congratulations.
she's 12 weeks pregnant. We're very excited. Yeah, it's
Is she following the similar eating plan, or is she
no, that's what people are shocked with when they hear my podcast or talk about me. I don't force plant based on my wife at all. I don't think it's the best way to eat personally. So she has eggs, she has chicken. She's laying off fish, but prior to her, being pregnant, salmon and some great fish would be implemented into her diet. Halibut, we're a big fan of halibut that I'll cook for her, and I don't eat it, but I cook it because I think that's important for her, especially as she is going through this process. We got to really identify certain nutrients and things that her body needs, and plant based is not going to be good for her or the baby right now. So it's important that she continues on what's best for her. So
That's good. I feel really worried when I hear women are plant-based and especially, I mean, infants, they can die if they don't like once they're born, they can die if they're given, and almond milk or some crap like that. It's like
that's
crazy.
right. Yeah, you got to be careful with that type of stuff. And we go back to whatever's going to be best for that person. When it's, I think a lot of times that I've noticed, especially people that have on my show, and they're talking vegan and they're preaching vegan to my audience. I always have to stop them, like, calm down for a second. Let's understand that's good for you, but it might not be best for the person. Don't hop on that bandwagon, whether it's being a vegan or being a carnivore. Don't do it because everyone else is doing it, or what podcaster is telling you to do it. You got to do what's best for you, and you got to do blood work. You got to go see a doctor. You got to do all the right steps, because this is like the only vessel you have. So
Yeah.
don't just try something because you think it's cool or trendy. Like, you got to do what's best for you and your body. So
Yeah, a long time ago, I did like a hair test and I was like deficient in every mineral when when I was plant-based.
right.
So it was like, okay, that's not working.
Yeah,
I
and
would I
that's
would
one
like to
thing
try it again to see what it is now.
to compare. Yeah, that'd be interesting. That would be a really cool video. You should do that. And I did those tests as well. That's why intake AG1, and I do a lot of protein shakes throughout the day because I'm still getting the protein and nutrients I need, and like chia seeds and hemp seeds, and I do all that type of stuff to kind of get the nutrients that I need. But it's a lot harder for me because I have to take more supplements and more vitamins, and it's just, but that's just how, unfortunately, I got to live my life for the time being.
What happens when you do eat meat?
I haven't tried that yet, recently. I know after, like, being a year of plant-based, and I tried, because we talked about this, I'm Italian, so, like, my dad cooked some spaghetti and meatballs, and his meatballs are, like, the size of my head, so it'll have, like, pork, sausage, sirloin, like, fantastic, and I had a half a meatball and let it marinate for a bit, and about an hour later, I had these massive stomach cramps. Really kind of like a spasm, though, not really like a cramp like, "Ooh, it hurts." It was just a spasm, and I could tell my intestines were freaking out. So, but, again, I go back to, that was like 2 years of not having meat.
Yeah, you're gonna have a definitely a reaction, I think,
Right.
for I mean, just like I get a reaction if I eat a big handful of almonds or something, it's like, "Ugh, I
Exactly.
haven't eaten that in so long." It's like, I will get a reaction, but
Yeah.
and I mean, you said you have trouble with fats. It could have been the fats and, maybe you need some digestive support, like when you take it, you need to have like HCl or the other one is ox bile is a big one with digestive enzymes because a lot of people have a deficiency in their pancreas and mm, from not having it for so long. I mean,
Sure.
you stop making all these enzymes if you don't eat a lot of meat,
That's right.
and stress depletes those too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, well, I'd be interested to hear when you do try it again, how that goes.
Yeah, usually around the holidays is typically when my family forces me to do it, but I did not do anything this past holiday. So usually they'll try to shove some type of steak down my face, but they were pretty nice this year. But yeah, again, we talked about this where I might even be interested to try carnivore. I know the first few weeks would rock me. Um, but God, it's just so terrifying, the what if. That's the thing for me now is, my blood works good. I mean, we're obviously able to have a kid, so my levels
Mhm.
and everything are fine. So it's hard for me to do it because of the effects that I get afterwards, where I have to go to the hospital because it's so bad. It's terrifying to me to try anything new.
Yeah.
As you know,
I can see
going
that. I mean, I have mostly stayed away from any conventional medicine, thank
right.
goodness, except for, with birth and all that. I had a C-section, but, that was not my choice,
Intention. Yeah.
at all. But, when it comes down to life and death, you're like, "Well, what am I gonna
I
do?"
guess.
I guess so. I wanna see my baby right now. So,
I guess I'll deal with the scar. No big deal.
yeah, I mean, when you get in that situation, you've gotta make a choice. So,
Yeah.
um, well, I think that, I think you're doing right. Just try it before the baby comes because your wife's gonna need all the help after she the baby
Yeah.
comes. So you can't be in the hospital then. So if
Exactly.
you wanna try carnivore, try it in the next few months and then,
That's a
um,
good move. That's a good move.
yeah. So but yeah, there's lots of people I was gonna say, like, Steak and Butter Gal has transitioned. She was vegan for many, many years, and she had horrible I don't think her digestion was the biggest thing. She had bad skin, and she was really, really young. So I mean, that's a different thing. But and there's countless other vegans that have transitioned over. But you have you do I think what you're doing right is that you do have a chronic disease. You have to go very slow. You have to test things and you have to be mindful. And I think you're doing all those things right and journaling and all those things. It's just people don't know your story and don't know what you've been through. And you have to you can't I can't just tell you, oh, you should do this. And, it's just like, we don't wanna be told what to do in general, just like our parents told us, don't drive, I don't know, without
Drunk.
your seatbelt. I was gonna try not to say that. But, yeah, we have to try it for ourselves, and that's the only way to learn. So, tell us just a minute of, motivation for people who are having challenges with their health, Tony, and then tell people where to find you, and then we gotta go.
Yeah, right on. So you can find me at the Berardo everywhere. You can listen to my podcast where we talk about health, wellness, and social interaction at the Berardo podcast, available everywhere. And then, I would tell people if you're struggling with any type of chronic disease or you're wondering what you should eat, just understand that everybody's different. Do the right steps, take your time, and then look at food differently. Look at food in a relationship aspect where you should have this relationship with food where it's going to treat you good if you treat it good. And take your time, really focus what you're intaking because you only get one vessel to take care of. So don't mess it up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Tony. And
Thank you.
congratulations. Good luck with the baby and the pregnancy and everything. All
Yeah.
right. Well, subscribe, share with a friend. Please leave a comment down below on what you think about this podcast and this video. Thank you so much. See you next time. Bye bye.
Thanks, Kaylin.